Everybody, welcome back to the channel as I continue my Marvel rewatch, and we are finally at Guardians of the Galaxy. And this is a movie that is quite unique so far. It's the new characters that we haven't met in the MCU so far, and it's a fun movie, so let's get into it. My review of the first Guardians of the Galaxy. So the movie kind of opens up with kind of an emotional scene with young Peter Quill on Earth, and his mom is in the hospital. She's dying of like brain cancer or something. But it really sets up his sort of character and the character arc that he's going to go through. Can't face the fact that his mom is dying, and he refuses to take her hand. He doesn't open up the present that she gives him. You know, he really has a hard time letting go, and I think in a way he has a hard time sort of forgiving himself a little bit, and then immediately he gets abducted by the Ravagers, and then he's taken to space, and we jump ahead like 30 years or something. So just having that opening with his mom dying kind of really lets us into the character a little bit more than we wouldn't have if we didn't have that opening. We would have just thought he was this jokey a-hole guy, but really he has these issues that he's actually not dealing with. He's been avoiding. But his character kind of comes full circle in the end, where he sees Gamora trying to reach out and take his hand, and he sees his mom instead, and then he finally accepts it, and he takes Gamora's hand, and then eventually he opens up that present from his mom, and we learn that that's how he gets his name Star-Lord. His mom used to call him Star-Lord as a kid. So it's a really good opening. It's kind of a really good sort of bookend character beat for Peter Quill's character. And so we get Peter Quill opening on Morag, the planet, and he's stealing this orb, and he's going to go sell it to a broker. And we don't know what the orb is just yet, but we know that somebody named Ronan wants the orb, and that Ronan is the villain of the movie, and he wants to get the orb for Thanos, and then Thanos will kill the planet Xandar for Ronan. And so Thanos' two adopted daughters, Nebula and Gamora, are working for Ronan right now. And Gamora gets sent out to get the orb from Peter, and so they're on Xandar. And then you kind of get this kind of fun fight scene with Gamora fighting Peter over the orb, and then Rocket and Groot trying to capture Peter because Peter's worth a lot of bounty. And I guess Rocket and Groot are kind of bounty hunters, maybe. And it's just kind of a fun fight scene, seeing the four of our core Guardians characters finally meet and come together. And then, of course, they get arrested. They go to prison. And that's where they meet Drax, the Destroyer. And then that's where we get our core 5 Guardians of the Galaxy characters. And I really like the scene in the prison. I just like how it's all set up. Peter's, arguing over the guard that took his, tape player, because that's, his mom gave him the tape deck, and his mom used to make the mixed tapes. And we get Drax threatening Gamora, and then Peter comes in, and that's kind of a whole funny scene where nobody knows what this means. And then, we get the cool breakout scene where they're going over the plan, and in the background, Groot is reaching up to the tower and pulling out the item, and then that sets off the alarm, and they have to hurry real quick. And then the whole gag with the prosthetic leg is great. And then, of course, Drax doesn't understand metaphors, They go right over his head, but his reflexes are too fast, he'd catch it. All that stuff, and Gamora's like, I'm going to die with the world's biggest idiots. All that stuff is really fun. So I love the whole prison breakout and everything leading up to that. And the movie is, I think the first half of the movie is just a really kind of fun ride that we're going on, getting introduced to all these characters. Then, after they break out of the prison, they are going to go sell the orb to the Collector, who we met at the end credits of Thor: The Dark World. So we know the Collector already has the ether, and they were going to bring him the orb, which we then learn contains the Power Stone, which is an Infinity Stone. And so the Collector explains exactly what the Infinity Stones are. He says, in the beginning there were 6 singularities, and then the universe was created, and those singularities were concentrated into little stone ingots. And those become the Infinity Stones, and we learn that they each control a different aspect of life. So the Power Stone is power and destruction. And then the ether was the reality stone. And so each of them has a different thing that they can control, but in a sense, they are just kind of immense power that no human being can control. I know in Thor: The Dark World, like Jane had the ether inside of her and she didn't like die, and then Malekith was able to use the ether. So I'm not sure how exact, but maybe because it's a fluid, maybe the ether is. But in this one, the Power Stone literally will just burn you and just create a bomb out of you and blow you up. And so the Collector's collection gets blown up, and that's really all we see of the Collector, which is kind of disappointing because he seems like a cool character. He's played by Benicio del Toro, and we do get him returning in one other movie, which I wish we would have got more of the Collector. He seemed like a cool character, and he definitely had a lot of different things in his collection. One of them was Cosmo the dog and Howard the duck, and I think he had a dark elf in there. I don't know if the Asgardians brought him the dark elf when they delivered the ether, maybe. So I wish we got a little bit more with the Collector, but at least we learned what the Infinity Stones were. I remember I talked about Thor: The Dark World kind of introduced us to that idea of Infinity Stones a little bit more, and now we get a little bit more explanation for that. And then Drax calls in Ronan because Drax wants to kill Ronan because Ronan kills Drax's family, and then that's how we get the kind of conflict coming together. Ronan ends up getting the Power Stone. Ronan is a bad villain. He's very one-dimensional. He just wants to kill Xandar because he's a religious zealot, and that's basically it. Once Ronan gets the Power Stone, he realizes it's the Power Stone and he doesn't need Thanos anymore, so he holds the Power Stone and puts it in his little hammer thing. And yeah, we do get introduced to Thanos in this movie. We had a shot of him at the end credits of Avengers, but he actually gets some lines of dialogue played by Josh Brolin. And it's just a little glimpse here. It's just one short scene, and it's not much, but it does kind of set up Thanos was trying to get his hands on these Infinity Stones, and it sets up the idea of Thanos and his adopted daughters too, which will obviously come to play later in the MCU. So it's kind of a small introduction, but it's kind of good that we kind of slowly throw him in there and build him up. But yeah, Ronan's a terrible villain. And then, of course, in the mix, we have Yondu and the Ravengers, who are the ones that abducted Peter when he was a kid. And they want to capture Peter because Peter went behind their back to sell the orb to the broker or something like that. So then Peter saves Gamora, but Yondu captures them. And then they all realize they need to come together to fight Ronan because otherwise Ronan's going to kill the whole planet of Xandar. And so that's the end sort of big battle scene. It's an okay battle scene. It's kind of like a little bit of a Star Wars space battle type thing going on for a little bit. And of course, you know, we get the Guardians all teaming up together for once. I do think that the second half of the movie is not as fun as the first half. There's some decent jokes. There's also some jokes that don't land that well for me. And the whole dance off to save the universe thing is kind of cringy, but also it makes sense because he's actually trying to distract Ronan. And then Peter gets his hands on the Infinity Stone, and it's a really nice moment where they all hold hands and everything. And then, of course, we get Groot that had to sacrifice himself, which was really sad because I loved Groot. I thought Groot had some of the best moments in like when he's in the background slowly grabbing the thing from the prison, when he just like shoots his arm through like 6 people and like flails them back around, and then he just turns and smiles. I loved Groot. I thought he was great. It was a sad ending, but it was also very touching that he sacrificed himself to save the rest of the Guardians, and you really see the connection that he and Rocket have also, and that's really, I think, very sweet in how broken up Rocket is. But of course, that's not the end of Groot, right? They save a little twig of him, and he can regrow himself back. We get baby Groot dancing in the end credit scene, so that's always fun. But it was a good sad moment, and like I said, Peter Quill sort of coming full circle with the death of his mom and opening the present finally. He finally has learned to accept that his mom is gone and that these Guardians are the new family. We also get Gamora, which she's kind of more of the straight man here. Drax is kind of the straight man, but also what he says is kind of deadpan and funny. So Gamora is kind of the one that's all business. and she's pretty cool. I like Gamora. Like I said, the prison scenes are great. Anytime she's fighting, it's really good. She doesn't get like her own character arc. We learn that Thanos killed her people and he took her, but we don't really get like a good character arc with Gamora. I think that comes later in the next Guardians of the Galaxy movie. We get introduced to her adopted sister Nebula, who's just a pure villain in this movie, very one-dimensional. But going forward, Nebula becomes one of my favorite characters in the MCU. And also Rocket. I really like Rocket Raccoon. I think he's a lot of fun. I like his sort of snarky sense of humor, and he's like he takes things apart and tinkers with things, and he builds weapons and bombs. That's really cool. And again, his relationship with Groot, I think, is really touching. And then Drax the Destroyer. Drax is an okay character. I mean, he gets a couple of good, funny lines, but his sort of arc of Ronan killing his family and him trying to get vengeance against Ronan, that kind of doesn't land very well because we don't get to really know Drax as a character. We just get that one character beat, which is the motivation for him to go against Ronan, and that's really all we get. But I think the character is still utilized really well in this movie. Yondu gets a cool scene where throughout the movie they're always teasing him with his whistle and his little arrow thingy, and then it finally pays off at the end. We see him whistle and that thing goes flying all over the place and takes out like 20 of Ronan's soldiers, and that's a really cool scene. And we see, we learn why everybody was so, fearful of Yondu. Like I said, I thought the ending was really interesting with them, Peter holding the Infinity Stone and the four of them holding the Infinity Stone. They kind of set that up earlier with the Collector, where he mentions there was a group of people that once held the Infinity Stone, but for a very brief time. And then at the very end, we get teased that Peter is only half from Earth, and that his father is something else, some ancient being, which explains why he was able to hold the Infinity Stone for so long without killing himself. And then they use that and they destroy Ronan, and Xandar is saved. But I really like this movie. I think it's got a lot of good things going for it. I kind of usually go back and forth on it. Sometimes I think it's really good. Sometimes I'm like, I don't like it. But this viewing, I was really into it. I thought it was a lot of fun, especially that first half. I really like the characters. I love Groot. Rocket's a lot of fun. And I like that sort of character beat with Peter and the opening with his mom and then the closure at the end. I thought that was really great too. Some of the stuff towards the end, the Ronin stuff, not so great. But overall, this is still a fun kind of space galaxy movie. And it's definitely a different type of movie for the MCU at this point. And I think it did really well, and everybody was really excited to see the Guardians come back. Yeah, I had a good time with this viewing. So those are my thoughts on the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button if you like this video. Subscribe to the channel for more Marvel reviews. And until next time, nothing would go over my head. My reflexes are too fast. I would catch it. Bye.